I have a question for you. Have you seen the Pretty Little Thing rebrand and what went wrong with it? It's quite crazy, and they went for a very elevated vibe and really forgot who they are. But have you seen all the commentary around it on social?
It's so funny. I saw this one creator say, like, not me, about to turn like 21 literally next month, and the one to sort of like party dress, fast fashion store is now like cosplaying as a trad wife now that I needed a dress for my 21st birthday when I can finally go to clubs, which obviously like goes to show that a rebrand like that and you trying to cosplay as like higher quality and maybe even like come off as more sustainable, like we're gonna call you out like in this era, not today.
Everyone's been calling them out because it is so obvious that they weren't just evolving themselves. They were literally trying to change their identity overnight, which everyone can see through that.
Yeah, you're listening to House of Content, and we're going to talk about this whole topic today. All of the brands that are cosplaying as slow fashion. I think this example gives me hope that we are maybe collectively ready to ditch fast fashion. But there's more to this. Like, we're talking viral no buy challenges, all the talk and content around capsule wardrobes, even clothing rentals, and how creators are really showing us that style isn't just about buying anymore and more being about creative about what you already have. So, I want to get more into this and how it's become almost cooler to shop a stranger's closet on Depop or Etsy, or even your own closet that it used to be. What are your thoughts about this?
I think I've gone through a sort of a little bit of a personal transformation, and I'm not calling it a no buy, I'm calling it a low buy because that is just more
I love that.
it's just more realistic for me. But I think like start of this year, I just sort of took stock and I was like, okay, I want to shop a little bit less. I want to shop my closet more. I want to try to find secondhand options where available. Like for example, I wanted to get myself a turquoise dress and a turquoise printed dress because I saw like a couple on like surprise on Farm Rio that I really loved. But then I was like, maybe I can find something like this on the real, and I did. And this dress retails for about $800, and I paid $60 for it. And it also made me feel good that I'm like
Wow.
kind of like it's again, I'm still shopping, but it's more like circular.
I love that. And I've tried shopping my own closet, and honestly it sounds a lot cuter until you actually try it. Like I swear it's not as simple as it seems, like especially if you're following the rules, which is like you go through everything in your closet and you're basically shopping the pieces that you want to keep and like deciding like what you want to quote unquote buy. It's a lot of work, especially if you have an overflowing closet like I do. And I honestly think I need someone to just emotionally support me through that. Like come over, like make me a matcha, like tell me what to do, because otherwise I'm just gonna sit on the floor for 3 hours and probably just end up like online shopping on Depop. Like
Well,
I'll
it's
you've
tough.
come to the right place because I'm only really a call away. But I actually really love this. And you know, when you get that question of like, if you were working in advertising as a creative director, what would your job be? And I honestly think I could be one of those creators who helps people either shop their closet, so basically make outfits out of the things that they already have, or one of those creators, if you've seen them, who basically get a brief. Maybe they look at a Pinterest board that someone has shared and then they thrift for them. Like, I feel like I'm good at that. And it is helping me so much in trying to buy less. But I also am someone who recently, I was actually on a work trip, and Mel was there as well. And I fully pretended that I owned all of the fur coats and whatnot I took to Chicago with me, but I actually rented all of them.
That I really love that. I The trouble that I had with rentals is that for me, like when I find a piece that I really love, I really want to
Yes,
own it, and that's
I'm
the
with you,
toughest part for me
Christine.
shopping my closet, because I have a lot of pieces that I only wear maybe once every 2 years, but I still love them. So I do not believe in the rule that if you haven't worn something in like X amount of month that you need to like throw it out. If you look at something and you're like, I love it. Like it makes me feel good to own this, keep it. But at the same time, also like I now have this rule where if I want to shop for something new, I have to clean out my closet. I have to sell a bag full of clothes to maybe like replace one or two. That's my rule.
Wow, that is a good rule. And I think that's literally the key. Like you coming up with the rules that work the best for you.
Hmm.
Because like there are a lot of these no buy challenges. And I did one back in 2023 because after having like started from scratch in the US, I had to buy, couch, bed, everything. So I did a no buy challenge after a few months, and I didn't buy anything for an entire month. And I feel like it was such a refreshing reset. And I've been wanting to do one again, but I honestly think that what's been stopping me is that like I'm just like, oh, but what if I need that? Or what if I need this? And like I think it all comes down to just creating the rules for yourself that work for you. Like of course, like maybe there's a certain necessities that you can still buy, and like you just create the rules for the things that you usually struggle with, like okay, no online shopping or no thrifting if you go every week, like I sometimes might. So it doesn't have to be like you don't buy anything at all ever. Like let's say you run out of mascara, like of course you're gonna go get that mascara, but you're not gonna get a new mascara just because you feel like having, I don't know, a different color or like different brand.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned the no buy challenge. There's obviously no buy months, no buy years, and what you're talking about is creating sort of your own rules around that. And obviously, TikTok and Instagram and social media in general has really contributed to these ideas, I think, getting spread more amongst creators. And we are almost in a recession period as well. So I
Hmm.
feel like all of this is bubbling to the top because people actually really need to find some ways to save. And there's sort of this trend associated as well where we're trying to break free from this constant consumption
Hmm.
that's promoted by creators at the same time that we're growing almost fatigued with the sort of rise of things like TikTok shop. And so I'm curious to hear if there's creators that you have clocked that are creating amazing content around this, or really bringing value to the conversation around no buys and even like breaking free from the cycle.
I love Elijah Berman. She's a creative director actually in and has worked at fashion companies for a long time, and a recovering shopping addict, I guess. And she's paid down, I want to say something like 50K in debt since starting. And so her whole motivation was that she wanted to get out of debt. And I think now she has like $5,000 to go, which is amazing. And she creates a lot of content around also the psychology of shopping and why we should not be going for shopping for like dopamine hits. And I'm kind of conflicted on that because like also like sometimes you just have to buy a cute shirt, you know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah.
it's girlhood, and so I do not want to give up like all of my guilty pleasures. But she has really like helped me rewire my thinking around like why do I need a new dress, or why do I need to get something from the latest collection. And she's doing a lot of content around like shopping her own closet and looking at runways, what's on runways right now, and then like recreating that look. And she also has like a really great delivery of like the way that she tells her stories. So I like she's my number one follow.
Yeah, I love
I
her
I
content, and
love her.
she has pretty openly, I think, talked about the addiction side
Hmm.
of shopping.
Hmm.
And I'm starting to see more content around that. And I was thinking about this the other day, and I was like, if there was an AA meeting for shopping addiction, I feel like half of TikTok should probably go at this point.
100%. Another half would go to phone addiction meetings. What I also love about Elysia Berman's content, like there was this one, like she does these like really clear rules for herself,
Hmm.
and also like, and that's something that actually inspired me to get even more specific instead of like following the rules that maybe other creators are using that I don't resonate with, and maybe that kind of push me away from doing that. It's like, no, like I can decide for myself what kind of rules I set for myself. And there was this other creator that went super viral in the beginning of last year, and she was going to do the entire year where she was not going to shop anything new. And I was following her for the first few months. Then she just like kind of disappeared, and I was trying to now to look for her. Either either the TikTok search function isn't working for me, or she just like wasn't able to go through that year. But I think that's so ambitious to do an entire year of not buying anything. It's kind of like, for
Mhm.
most people, I think it's like a recipe for failure. Like,
I think it's the same.
it's tough.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing as with diets. Is that if it's
Yes.
not a sustainable lifestyle for you, I don't think it's gonna work. And so I think even for me, like I'm doing my low buy, but there is this sort of, and I'm trying to shop more around like concepts. And I know that like maybe not like I
Mm.
don't want to jump on every single trend, but if there's something that really speaks to me, like for example, Chloe's new boho revival, like all of those like
Yeah.
the ruffles and the flowy dresses, I am so obsessed, but obviously I'm not going to pay $5,000 for a dress. Even the used ones on Real are like retailing for a couple grand, and like I'm not going to, that's just not going to happen. And so I did, and again, like I feel a little guilty. It is H&M, but I did find this like brown maxi dress that I was able to get like 20% off. And, we'll see what it looks live, but I'm like so obsessed with this sort of vision that I know that I'm going to be able to recreate for that. And maybe I'll even wear it in LA in a couple of weeks when we're all together. But yeah, I think like I'm trying to be more mindful, and I'm trying to like shop from a place of like inspiration and see if I can first do it myself with my closet, and then if not, then I give myself the permission to maybe like venture out.
Yeah, I love those creator examples as well. And we started to get into this a little bit, but the clothing rental business is obviously booming as well. And it's interesting because I was looking into some stats around this, and Newly recently became profitable, like
Hmm.
way faster than
Oh,
a lot of the
I love
competitors. But
that.
Newly
Yeah.
is owned by Urban Outfitters, which is an interesting twist here. But I think it just
What?
shows that there's a lot of money here.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone who just went through my first month of ordering 6 pieces of clothing, I truly was even telling my husband, because he doesn't need a lot of things, but he'd like to have a nice wardrobe, that if we both were just paying a rental service, let's say it's around $90, you get 6 pieces of clothing, and we tried to not buy any clothing outside of that, outside
Mm-hmm.
of maybe, let's say a bit of an investment bag here and there or whatnot, we
You
would end
save
up
so much
spending
money.
so much more money. Exactly. And so I think that some of these services are adding an interesting twist to this, where it's not about suffering of like, I'm never going to get anything,
Mm,
because we, even as marketing and advertising professionals, understand that the way that you present yourself and the way that you look, and having, some of those pieces that feel fresh and trendy and whatever, like it does actually matter. And so,
Mm-hmm.
not to say that your closet doesn't already have those, but I do think that like this approach is kind of an in between of like, I don't buy anything, to, I don't need to own everything, is super interesting. And there's some other
I
brands as well that are doing this.
I absolutely love that, and I never have been able to justify renting clothes yet. And I think it's just about the mindset, and I think especially if you are like exploring a new style or something, or you're still trying to maybe express yourself differently, I think that's the best way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because like, what if you don't like, the flowy dresses or like floral patterns or whatever? Like, you have an entire month to test that out. So I'm actually like, while I'm speaking, I'm kind of like, maybe I should try it for a month. Like, I am actually so intrigued, Yanni, because you've been talking about it so much in the past month, and I've been
Yeah.
loving the pieces that you've been renting. That is such a
Y-
genius idea.
Yeah, and it's also related to occasions, right? Because I have some events
Yeah.
coming up. So I mentioned that I had a trip to Chicago for work, and I had another one to Tahoe. And I don't want to buy fur coats because I don't even have a
No.
place to store them. They're also very
Mm.
trendy, and I'm talking about faux fur coats here, by the
Of
way.
course.
And so it was really nice to just have them for a period of time. And now I have a baby shower coming up. So instead of spending, let's say $300 to $400 on a dress, I can rent a couple and see if any of those works, which would be part of the monthly rent piece. So I don't know if I will continue it forever, but I do think that it's super interesting, even from like market research perspective. And I know there's some amazing brands and companies. There's one in Finland, Robes Rental,
Hmm.
that's getting really popular. Even our president's wife, the first lady of Finland, is starting to use some of their accessories because they're renting more like high-end designer bags and accessories, which is also becoming a way for people to rent their closets to make money. So the things that are sitting in your closet, you could technically be making money that someone else is using your bag X euros or dollars a day, which also is super interesting to me.
Yeah, and I think also for, where you're at right now, you're 6 months pregnant right now, or
Yeah, almost
yeah,
seven.
almost
Seven.
7. And
Yes.
so you're obviously, your body's changing. It's going to continue to change like after you have your baby. I think having a service like that is also like perfect for like not just for the sort of the consumption side of things, but also for like the life stage that you're in. I always like toy with the fact of like getting a subscription again, but then like I also think like I should just like go back and shop my closet because I also have so many things that I actually like to wear still. So that's where I'm
Yanni,
headed.
when
Yeah,
is your next box coming?
I think in the next week or something. So I
I think we
will,
need content about
yeah,
that
I'll need
for
to
this
do
episode.
that because I didn't have time to do it before, but I do think it's super interesting
Hmm.
to share. So I will do my best to film that. But I want to move a little bit past just the sort of individual closet layer, and shift this thinking to, brands and how fast fashion is a part of the conversation here. And we're also seeing a lot of trends like old money aesthetic. And I think there's a lot of brands that are actually cosplaying as
Hmm.
slow fashion. Have you
Hmm.
spotted that? And have there been instances where brands are really missing the mark in terms of being authentic to who they actually are, beyond obviously Pretty Little Thing being a prime example of that?
Hmm. I mean, Zara comes out with their surplus collection like a couple of times a year, and
Mm.
they like even presented with like models on a runway on the e-commerce site, and it very much feels like, oh, like circular economy. But then like when you actually, you look at it, it's like it's again like it is just Zara. And I think there's a lot of that also as it relates to fabrics. Like for example,
Mm-hmm.
like there's the Ecovero viscose that is it's being marketed as an eco-conscious option, whereas like viscose overall, like the amount of resources that you need to produce it, like it is not a sustainable fabric per se, but it has those green little tags and says eco. And so like that's also a marketing message that you see a lot around just like production side of clothing too.
Yeah, and fast fashion brands are like panicking, and you can totally tell that. And I think because they're seeing the rise of these capsule wardrobes and thrifting and rental culture, and all of a sudden they're also like trying to do this kind of like a fake glow up and all
Hmm.
themselves like quite luxury, or even like have the kind of clothing that looks like that. And like for example, when you're building your capsule wardrobe, it's not like you're just going to be building the basics. You want good basics that are you know good textiles, great quality. And I feel like even a lot of fast fashion brands have tapped into that, so it looks like, oh, like this is great capsule wardrobe essentials, and they're selling it in that way, even though they're made of really bad materials. Like they're not going to
Mm-hmm.
last for more than a few months, so they're not actually a good sustainable part of your capsule wardrobe. And a lot of people aren't able to recognize that, because there's still a lot of people who don't understand that you really need to check the labels. What are the clothes made of, where are they made, and how are they made? So then like they kind of buy into that as well. And that's why I love TikTok and the way that that's exposing different brands. Like we already talked about Pretty Little Thing, and how creators have been exposing them and their supply chain and how nothing has really changed there. It's just all branding. And I think that is bringing a lot of awareness. But then there are a lot of people who obviously aren't even interested in that and
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
rather be in their like bubble and not know at all and just
I think
continue
I
to
even noticed
buy
Alicia
things.
creating a video that was debunking like Gap is not slow fashion, Banana
Mhm.
Republic is not slow
No.
fashion. But I love that you both talked about fabrics and that part because I actually had a phase where I was very anti specific brands. So I was like,
Mm.
I'm not buying anything from Zara. I think I went at least 2 years without buying anything from Zara, which actually felt like a big thing. But now I'm very much more focused on fabrics
Mhm.
and really reading the labels. And I do wish that people took the same intensity that they may have for reading food labels to reading clothing labels
Mhm.
because I think that
Yes.
really helps because I, for example, recently bought this beautiful dress from Zara that was 100% wool, like really thin, and it means that like if you're making conscious decisions, it's less about the brand. However, some of those brands,
Mhm.
you're not going to find that in most of the clothing, but I think that's a pretty good way to sort of go about it and be a little bit more mindful.
Yeah, and I think also like if you do shop fast fashion, I try not to buy things that I know that in like 4 months, 5 months I'm gonna put into the recycle slash resale pile, but rather like for example, most of my blazers that I have are from like a couple of them are from H&M. I have one from like Zara that I love, but I know that I'm gonna have these in my closet for the next 7, 8, 9 years, and they're gonna stay in tip top shape because it's not something that I'm like wearing like every day for like 8 hours a day. It's not something
Mhm.
that you wash all the time that gets that wear and tear. And so I think also like sustainability can come from like if you cannot afford the price tag of a $500 wool blazer from a high-end brand, I think there's also a level of, and this is interesting, a level of elitism that does come
Yeah.
around consumption because not everybody can afford to shop truly sustainable brands.
That's important to mention. And we do always talk about clothes, but I'm curious of your thoughts around the influencers with these
Mm,
makeup collections that fill an entire room behind them.
hmm.
And, you know, I've even seen a video of someone's cabinet with their Stanley collection of all the different mugs and things that they
It's
have. And I feel
ridiculous.
like we need to be equally critical about that. So, do you think that some of these creators who are pushing over consumption in a way will hurt in the long run from creating their presence primarily around that?
100%. I think we're seeing major content fatigue, and TikTok Shop is making many of us just want to spend less time on the app. And my prediction is that creators who primarily build their content around consumption and new products will always be stuck at a certain level. Like, yes, sure, you'll be getting brand deals and money for making content, but will you ever really get hired for jobs who are about who you are? I think it's going to be a lot harder if you're relying solely on like product romanticization than actual like real value that you could provide.
And
Yeah.
that brings me to this conversation that I wonder if you guys have seen this around like New York City influencers being boring. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
there's
Yes.
this whole thing that blew up around
It's
like
all over my For You
yeah,
page.
because like and there is this one sort of agency slash woman who's like really engineered the sort of the content constructs and the style around like many of the New York City influencers that we know, like Audrey Peters, like those types. And I think it like begs sort of the question of like, especially around fashion and style, like are these people really stylish or do they just have access to like the latest clothes and the brands and the handbags that people covet? And I think that is a really good question. And as these platforms mature, I think we're going to see a sort of a division between creators who have true style, and who have a unique perspective to wearing clothes. And I think we're going to see those people also like repeat pieces and style them different ways, versus then the influencers who only look stylish because they have access to like the newest Marc Jacobs collection or whatever it may be. And that's not going to be a marker of something that will be interesting to people anymore.
Yeah, I agree. I love that we went into predictions already. Mel, do you have a prediction as well? Like, what are we going to see more of in this space? Like, obviously, creators trying to balance, hey, I want to and need to, in a way, push some product, but how do I stay authentic to, who I am and bring some of my personality into the mix, like you said, because otherwise, I don't think you're going to have sustainable growth or be able to keep that on the platforms.
I think it all comes down to curation. The creators that who actually last are the ones who curate and not just consume.
Hmm.
I think taste is the new flex.
Mm.
Like if you can't make me want something without buying yourself like first, like you're just a TikTok shop employee at that point. So I do think that it's all about curation and taste and
Hmm.
how you can put things together and like without having to buy something. And I think that the ones who are showing how you can do it with the existing things that you have in your closet are going to be the ones that can truly inspire their audiences.
And I think it raises the bar for personality.
Yeah, exactly. And we have a new segment too. So going from predictions to some real pitches. So pitch on the house, and thinking about the no buy movement, capsule collections, like our fatigue with overconsumption. Like, what do you want to see brands or creators do to kind of counter this fatigue that we're seeing?
One of my favorite fashion eras was the time when H&M was coming out with all of those capsule collections with designers. I still have this
Mm.
silver bomber jacket from the Isabel Marant one that is just one of my prized possessions. But what I would love to see there is I would love for them to partner with these design houses to create like recreate some of the archival pieces, but I would want them to create those from either dead stock fabric or upcycle existing pieces of clothing, and that way like bring them to market. That's what I'd like to see.
I love that. And I don't know if you knew this, but the real actually does do that sometimes where they take
Mm.
some of the items that haven't sold and they have a designer
Mm.
basically turn them
Hmm.
into new pieces and release
Oh.
them. But I don't think they have it very often. And I
Mm-hmm.
never get my hands on anything, but like I actually really love it. There's also some brands that are starting to use like oversized men's, like let's say vintage Ralph Lauren like
Yes.
button up shirt
Yeah.
and do dresses for women, and
Yeah.
I
I love
am
that.
obsessed. And the markups on those are crazy because I feel like you can find uh vintage men's large button up shirts for so
Like
cheap.
20 bucks.
And so I'm this close to buying a sewing machine so I can start doing some of that stuff
Yeah.
myself, but they look beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not ready to pay $500 $400
No.
for the restructured shirt. But I do think it's a genius idea.
It is. One thing I want to actually see is a brand spotting a creator who has been continuously creating content around their clothes, tapping into them and asking them to kind of like to show all the clothes that they've been purchasing throughout the years and how they're styling them, and kind of like, even if it's something that they bought like 5 10 years ago, show how they're still using them and how they're using that in their style, instead of trying to promote something new, because I feel like all those brand collaborations, they're always focused on new drops. So I would love to
Mhm.
see them using the old pieces, and it can be a mix of old and new, but
Mm-hmm.
something that isn't like currently in their selection. They're not trying to sell anything new. They're trying to show how, like, hey, like, our clothes are such high quality and have such like,
Mm-hmm.
great longevity, that you can use these for years or even decades.
Okay, I love that. I have two that I am too excited to not share. One of the things that came to my mind was like brand sponsored clothing swap parties. Like,
Mm-hmm.
think of a brand like Love Shack Fancy. Like,
Mm.
they would host the most beautiful clothing swap
Mm-hmm.
party where you just get to bring some of the pieces that you have, but maybe you feel like, okay, I've worn this Love Shack fancy dress already for 5 weddings and 5 baby showers,
Mm-hmm.
and you just need to circle and get another one. And so if it's big enough, you would find maybe people that
Mm-hmm.
are not in your close circle, but I think that would be amazing. I would attend it. And then I want to
Mm-hmm.
see from a creator point of view, creators like yourself, Mel. This is an idea. Maybe you need to do it. But I want to get a 75 hard challenge, but like made into more of a no buy, low buy
Hmm.
piece. Like there's already soft versions of the 75 hard like fitness challenge, and a lot of that is also about educating yourself. I remember that there's like a piece around reading a book and stuff like that, and
Mm-hmm.
so I feel like someone needs to
I
do
love
that
that.
for this
I'll do
topic.
that.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe there could be things
I'm
like, okay, now I'm
excited.
getting really into it, but like one of the
Yeah.
things that I'm building is a capsule makeup bag. And so like you could just put things like that in there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
one tactical way I'm getting to that is like I collected all my lippies, like all my lip products.
Mm-hmm.
I put them in one clear glass jar, and I'm not allowed to buy a new one until all of the, those ones are gone, or
I need to
or
do
if
that.
like one old one is done, I get to get a new one. But I have so
Mhm.
many right now because seeing all of them in one
How many?
basket,
Tell us, Yanni.
I
How
may need
many?
to. I didn't count them. That's crossing the line. I
How
don't want
dare
to
you,
put that
Mel?
number out there. How dare you ask? Mind you, I also get sent stuff, so it's
Yeah.
hard to keep the balance of like I only buy ones that fit into
Mm-hmm.
my capsule bag.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like visualizing it, like there's something there in
Mm-hmm.
a 75 hard meets like
Yes.
this space.
I think we should create that together for House of Content.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
yeah, the low buy House of
And
Content
then all
version.
take part of that.
the low
Yes.
buy challenge. I think that's a great way to end and wrap up the episode. We've kind of put homework for ourselves, but a little homework for you would be let us know how you like the episode, leave us a review, share this podcast with someone who you think would enjoy it. And you're listening to House of Content, and we'll see you next time.